Hey, it's Camo with the Nashville Access Facebook show, brought to you by Solace North Gulch Apartments, where taste matters. And if you have a taste for country, but you also have a taste for punk and your maybe alternative country, then your taste is this guy, Jason Ringenberg. Thanks for being on the show, man.
My pleasure, Camo. My pleasure.
You first came to my attention as Jason and the Nashville Scorchers.
Oh my goodness, been here that long. You're an old Nashville guy then.
No, I'm a new Nashville guy, but that was at college up in Canada.
Really?
Yeah. And it was just such a cool sound that you had. And then it evolved to Jason and the Scorchers, and now you're Jason Ringenberg, and your music still continues to be cool.
Thank you.
So, now you just came back from the UK. Did you?
I did, yeah. Basically, just a day or so ago, and then just got home from a run of shows last night. So,
where were you in the UK? Because we've got a ton of people watch over there. So.
We did mostly English shows, and we did one show in Scotland and Glasgow.
Nice.
Yeah, big fun.
Scotland, especially Glasgow, they know how to party up there.
Glasgow is one of my favorite live music cities in the world.
Did you play King Tut's?
No, I did play at a place called the Center for Korean Audio Arts or something.
Oh,
it was great.
Yeah,
Great.
cool. King Tut's is the club to play.
Mm-hmm.
That's the place.
Yeah.
Your music tends to cover a lot of fans internationally because it is so alternative to what people are hearing on the radio.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. Folks are folks no matter where you go.
Yeah.
Basically, you have to move them in some sort of way.
How did you come to the idea originally with the Nashville Scorchers to do what everybody at the time was calling cowpunk?
Well, it was a natural thing. We just got together. There wasn't any term for it then.
No.
We were just one of the first bands to be doing that sort of thing. But it was just a natural thing. We got together with Warner and Jeff and Perry, and just sort of explosively happened. I don't remember us ever talking about it. We just did it.
That didn't come up with a style, just let's do this.
It just happened, yeah. It was
cool.
just that.
And why did you go from the Nashville Scorchers to just the Scorchers?
Well, that was actually a thing I regret to this day.
Let me guess, a label?
Yeah, Capitol Records suggested it. I thought we'd be marketed as a country band, so I wish we wouldn't have, but I had to live with a lot of things. I got to live with also.
Yeah. You've got a brand new album out, and this is it. And it's really, really good. Stand Tall, all brand new music, and I love that you've got a John Muir quote.
Right. John Muir was the stuff.
And the Ramones.
You cover those two people, you got a lot of ground covered when you do.
That's right. Are you on the road a lot?
Yeah, I play all the time. I'm a live performer. That's the basis of my art. So I get in front of people one way or another. Yeah.
Do you want to do a song, and then we can talk more about the record and everything?
Okay. All right. Sure.
Cool.
This is a song from the new record. This is called John the Baptist Was a Real Humdinger. Crazy John from early on knew he was singing in a different song. Knew he was marching to a different beat, like his quiet cousin from down the street. Then one day he finally knew his role in life and what to do. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger. He could scream the truth like a drunk folk singer. Wander in the hills of Galilee, whipping up crowds to a wild frenzy, standing tall like an old gunslinger. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger. Oh yeah. priests and frauds, abstain from sin and turn to God. While down the road his cousin dear was sowing hope and killing fear. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger. He could touch your soul like an old blues singer. Wandering the hills of Galilee, living on the edge, wild and free. The go-to guy, the perfect ringer. John the Baptist was a real humdinger. Herod king, he ruled the land with Roman spears and bloody hands. But John was not afraid to say the truth to him, come what may. No, Herod couldn't break his mind with briberies of prison time. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger. He could work a crowd like a rock star singer. Wandering the hills of Galilee, whipping up crowds to a wild frenzy, standing tall like an old gunslinger. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger. Well, in the end, John held his ground, though he could have brought the empire down. But he stood up for the truth and gave away his fame and youth, simply to prepare the way for all the souls his cousins saved. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger, spitting words like a punk rock singer. Wandering the hills of Galilee, whipping up crowds to a wild frenzy. The go-to guy, the perfect ringer. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger. Yeah, John the Baptist was a real humdinger.
Nice. The cool thing about your music, and I think it says true from when you started to this record, is it's not a stretch to hear somebody like Cash doing those songs.
I was thinking that when I wrote that song.
Yeah.
Actually, it would have been a good sort of late '60s Cash song. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
It's funny because punk has always kind of claimed Cash as well as real hardcore traditional country guys, and that seems to be the genetic line that your music has come from.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, we hope to stood on those shoulders of those giants. That's for sure.
How much of an influence were bands like the Ramones and the Clash for you?
The Ramones and the Clash were a huge influence on Jason and the Scorchers.
Yeah.
And in fact, the first tour that we had in big rooms was opening for the Ramones in Texas in 1982. And it was a tremendous learning experience. And they were really cool to us. They were really good people.
Everybody that has ever bumped into them has said they're really great.
Right. In fact, I wrote one of the songs on the record called God Bless the Ramones about that experience. Yeah. So it's all about that experience.
How did your stuff go down in really hardcore country establishments? Because at that time, it wouldn't have been really considered country. You were really ahead of the curve when it came to that.
Yeah, that's true. We, in the early days and through most of our big run, we were pretty careful to stay in rock and roll venues. Yeah. And in the early days, we were actually in punk rock bars. That's where we were playing. New Wave bars. They call it New Wave in those days. Yeah. And that's where we stayed. We came out of the same circuit that spawned R.E.M. and Guadalcanal Diary and people like that.
I haven't heard Guadalcanal Juvenile Diary in a long time. That's pretty cool. Where do you find your big cores of followers are? Like I'm thinking you're going to have a huge following in New York City, places like that.
You never really know. I can never really predict what's going to happen because it's not like one crowd. You know, it's not like we fit into the punk crowd, or we fit into the country crowd, or we fit into the alt country crowd. It's just we kind of like exist in all the spots and in none of those spots.
I talked to Corb Lund a while ago, and he's in that alt country thing. He says, you know, if I go to New York, I'm seen kind of in a coffee house sort of folk entertainer, but when I go out to Montana or Idaho or a place like that, I'm a country entertainer.
Right. Corb can do that, he's that one.
So you've had kind of a quiet time, and then, but you've been performing steadily. But this album came out just earlier this year, and wow. It's nice to have product out there again.
It is. It's my first solo record in 14 years. My first grown-up music record since in 10 years. So, yeah.
Grown-up music. Tell me about that.
Well, for one of the reasons I haven't been in this world is I had and still have a alternative alt ego character called Farmer Jason, and that's for kids.
Oh, cool.
And so I've been singing that for really hard with that.
Yeah,
I actually won an Emmy Award for that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been I had a good run with that.
Wow.
A lot of fun. And I mean, yesterday I was playing in North Carolina at a little school.
Wow.
In rural North Carolina. Yeah. So singing to little fourth graders, fifth graders. It's great.
How do they like you?
Oh, it's always wonderful.
Yeah.
School shows are the best because they really, no matter what you do, they're going to like. You know? So you're starting from a great place already.
Expectations are low.
Yeah, they're having fun no matter what. They don't have to study stuff in the classroom. They got this crazy guy singing up there. But it always is. I love doing the school shows. They're wonderful.
Is it the same? I mean, physically, you say you're a live artist. Is it the same kind of feel that you have to do when you're doing those two completely different shows, playing a venue in Scotland and then coming to play for kids in North Carolina?
Well, it's not as different as you would think. Something happens. I'm not sure. People say I might be schizophrenic, which may be true, but
you're never alone.
You're never alone there. That's right. But
it was a joke. No hate on the schizophrenic.
That's right. But there's just something that happens in a live performance situation that, if you're a live performer, then you just adapt and you just, you turn on the switch that works there. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you have to deliver something that means something to people, whether they're 4 years old or whether they're 40 years old or whether they're 70 years old. You have to connect with them in some sort of way. And that doesn't change no matter who you're singing for.
Wow. You want to do another song from the album?
Sure.
All right.
How about doing a Ramones song?
Yeah.
God bless the Ramones.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I had a great experience. That was a great experience for us when we opened for the Ramones in Texas in 1982. I learned a lot of stuff, mostly how to dodge beer. Well, in the spring of 82, I got a call from this New York dude. He had heard of the Nashville Scorchers, busting doors and lighting torches. Sky offered us a Texas tour, guaranteed to make us less obscure. He was hoping for the Ramones, you see, in the Texas state of Missouri. And though we had no master plan, no amps at work or a running van, we said yes and away we went with $50 past due rent. We drove to Beaumont, Texas first, for college punks with quench their thirst, on bands like Killing Joke and Black Flag, and bartenders all in drag. God bless the Ramones, they never made much money. Those folks either hated them, thought that they were funny. God bless the Ramones, they never sold their soul. The U.S. corporate radio, all that in control. Well, Dee Dee was the first we met, and Jeff couldn't afford bass strings yet, so Dee Dee gave him extra strings, some cider beer and then chicken wings. Then we opened up the show. There was so much we didn't know. Those Texas punks bombarded us with bottles of beer, vile stuff. God bless the Ramones. They never made much money. Most folks either hated them or thought that they were funny. God bless the Ramones. They never sold their souls. The U.S. corporate radio, all that in control. Well, now everyone loves the Ramones. Posters of them in their homes, and that t-shirt that bankers wear on weekends when they drink and dare. But no one's left from that first band to take it in or make a stand. All those years and all those miles, they barely spoke and they rarely smiled. 10,000 shows they gutted through for a small group of us who knew they were the first and they're still the best to truly stand the punk rock test. God bless the Ramones. They never made much money. Most folks either hated them and thought that they were funny. God bless the Ramones. They never sold their souls. The U.S. corporate radio, all that in control. Gabba gabba hey, gabba gabba hey, gabba gabba hey, let me hear you pray.
Far. Do you miss that energy of the punk era? I mean, punk still exists, but it's just not as big as it was.
Right, yeah. Well, it's not the tremendous discovery explosion that it is.
At the time, it was so raw and kind of like grunge was to hair metal. It was a reaction to all the,
Right. It was good times.
poppy.
You never really knew what was going to happen in those kinds of late 70s or
Literally.
early 80s. You never knew what was going to happen. It was everything we were learning as we were going, all from that generation, of musicians and people who were following music. It was such an exciting time.
And a lot of people kind of, I think the musical establishment really dismissed the punk sound. Really dismissed the punk sound.
That's an understatement.
And didn't want to have it, even, popular metal bands today still say they hate that era because it was just so stripped down and honest and real. Sex Pistols and the Clash, the Ramones, it was just, when you turned on the radio and heard those, when you were lucky enough to get them, and you as well, you didn't quite know what you were going to get.
Right. Well, we were starting to really hit it hard like in 81 and 82, and in those days there was the hardcore punk scene, which was even more radical than the first generation. I mean, the Black Flags and Dead Kennedys and all those people from California and all the New York punk rock bands. We were in the same circuit, some of those people, played shows with them. And played 688 with Circle Jerks, as a matter of fact. It was so incredible. It was, somehow the cowboy hat and the fringe shirt didn't throw them off. They got into it.
Yeah.
But it was always just a real neat dynamic of these cultures sort of clashing. It was really cool energy.
When bands like the Ramones came out, it did give a certain expectation of here's what punk is all about. But you didn't quite fit that either. You still, like you say, wearing the fringe shirts and all that kind of stuff, and they still dug you.
Yeah, it was always a neat being different. That's for sure. But we shared enough. Certainly, the rhythm of the Jason and the Nashville Scorchers owed almost everything to the Ramones. Mm-hmm. Jeff Johnson played like Dee Dee Ramone played. He really did. I mean, our bass player at the time, he was playing straight eights. Most country musicians, they'd go. Jeff was going. So that's Dee Dee Ramone right there.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just amazing how the Ramones have had so much influence over so many artists and so many different styles of music. They went beyond punk and allowed artists like yourselves to reach beyond those particular borders.
Yeah, they had staying power. A lot of those bands I have to think about, like, You know, what do they do? What do they sound like? But the Ramones, you always remember. You always remember exactly how they sounded, and you don't have to think about it. It was just there, and it's still in our culture. You know, the Ramones have gotten bigger. I always think it was a great tragedy that none of them can enjoy.
Yeah.
The sort of adulation they have now. I mean, they fought so hard all those years. That's what that song is a lot of it's about that I wrote. And they never got their due when they were doing it. But now, golly, if they were alive now, if they were playing now, they'd be killing it. They would be killing it now.
They'd be doing the thing that they rebelled against, probably.
They would be, right.
Yes.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm sure they don't control their publishing, but you hear their songs in commercials now. I'm sure they're spinning in their graves on that one.
The first time I heard a Zeppelin song in a commercial, on a Cadillac commercial, it's like, really? Right. Really? How are you taking our music and doing this to it? Right. Now, your music has an element of that you don't really have to think too much about it. But it's still, lyrically, really high quality lyrics that you do think about, like John the Baptist.
Well, thank you. You know, I'm an old Dylan head. That's my first thing, so that's going to creep in no matter what I do. And I think that always surprised people. A lot of folks' first exposure to Jason and the Nashville Scorchers, they thought we were a party band, and just a big, loud, fun party band. And then they started listening to some of those songs, and they're like, "Oh, there's much more to this than I thought."
What's your favorite Dylan song?
Well, that'd be tough. But I can always say that Tambourine Man I always appreciate.
Really?
Because it's just such a beautiful, optimistic song, every line. And it's one of those songs where there's so many words in it and so many lines that literally every line could be a song. It was that well written.
To me, anything that from Blood on the Tracks, just killer.
Yeah, Tangled Up in Blue, man. Yeah, that'd be number 2, and maybe even another day I might have said Tangled Up in Blue.
And then Desire, that album was cool.
Oh yeah, Isis.
With Hurricane, Isis, Mozambique.
Oh, that's great stuff. And Sarah, that song, Sarah.
And there's another guy that fought hard at the beginning of his career, like the Ramones, to get his stuff heard, and his legacy today is just huge. And he's still doing it.
Yeah, you know, we actually toured with him once in the late 80s.
How was that?
It was really cool because there wasn't ever any time where we were like sitting around talking about songs. It was always like, you know, we'd be having the catered meal, you know, backstage, and all of a sudden there's Bob Dylan right there getting barbecue, and he'd say stuff like, "Hey, I hear the barbecue is really great tonight, Jason. I'll get you a plate of it."
How surreal is that?
It was like just the coolest.
And you've taken lyrically, I think you're doing what Dylan has done, and melodically, you're taking what the Ramones have done and making them all your own. I've just been a fan of your music for, obviously, since I was familiar with the Nashville Scorchers for a very long time. You go back a long ways. So were you in college radio in Canada? Yeah.
Which station?
CHMR at Mohawk College.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So that's going to be 84.
84, right?
Yeah.
I kind of remember the name. I remember the call letters and stuff. Yeah, that's cool. Well, the college radio people from the early and mid 80s, that's another bond. You know?
Yeah.
You guys were the alternative to corporate radio.
By mandate, we had to be, you know.
Right.
We had to, you know, I think we were one of the first. College radio broke U2 and In Excess and all those big bands, and then they got big enough that we couldn't play them anymore.
That was always fun.
But we could always play you.
We never got big enough to be.
But that was a good thing. That was a good thing. You always felt, you know, when you had these bands that you took possession of, and you thought, this is really cool, nobody else is into this. It's like a private club. And then all of a sudden everybody knows about it and the fun's gone.
Yeah.
But
it was always a real challenge, you know, for us and for all bands who went through that, because you start from the college radio base, and then, like I remember KJHK in Lawrence, Kansas, they were the first one to give us a #1 record. And for that reason, we were filling rooms in Lawrence, Kansas. Then when we got our deal with Capitol, the radio promotion staff wanted to promote the show with a big FM station.
Yeah.
And I just remember, thank you, KJHK, and then I thanked the corporate station. And everybody started booing. It was such an embarrassing moment. I'm like, okay, let's just not thank anybody next time.
But it was neat because we always, no matter how successful the Ramones got, or the Clash, or any of the other bands at the time, and including you, no matter how kind of, it was still flying under the radar, and we could always have you to turn back to and say, yeah, this is great, but we've got these guys still. And it was a real sense of pride that we played Nashville, the Nashville Scorchers, and it's still a big part of my life when I look back on those times. It's like, man,
there's a connection to all of us who are from that time period.
Yeah, because we were all learning. We were all making dumbass mistakes
Right.
and learning as we go, and to watch you making them on a slightly bigger scale than we were making.
Right. Cool thing, isn't it?
Don't do that.
Cool thing. It's a wonderful thing to have that sort of shared experience with people, you know, from that time.
Do you get a lot of people like that showing up to your shows?
Oh yes, and they always want to tell the first time they saw Jason and the Scorchers,
Wow.
or Jason and the Nashville Scorchers, or something. They always want to say that.
Yeah.
You know, they want to share that story.
A lot of artists don't like to look back at that kind of stuff, but for you it seems almost, yeah, that's my base.
Oh, yeah.
Those are where we started, and it's a big part of who I am now.
Right. I would never disparage anyone who is over 50 and likes my music. You know? That's a whole lot of my audience. So I would never. Yeah, that's all good.
How are newer fans discovering you? How are the kids finding out about you?
Well, you know, they're doing it the way, you know, like my daughters are now early college years, and they have friends that are finding out about, you know, Addie's dad, you know, this Jason Ringenberg guy, and they'll go check it out on Spotify or YouTube or something, and that's how they discover it.
Nice. Thanks for coming in today, man.
I tell you, I'm so sorry I was late because Nashville traffic.
Nashville traffic.
That's all I have to say.
I know.
But I really enjoyed this, Camo. It was really cool. A wonderful experience. Thank
Please
you.
come back again.
I'd love to.
It's an honor to be sitting with one of my musical heroes from my misspent youth.
Right back at you.
I'm now in my misspent adulthood, and still digging it. Jason Ringenberg, the album is called Stand Tall. I guarantee you're going to love this record. I did it from the first time I heard it, and I continue to dig it the more I play it.
Amen.
Thanks. Make sure you watch next time, and make sure you go out and check with Jason. Where can people connect with you?
JasonRingberg.com. We have a Facebook page, of course, a Twitter account, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Make sure you go to that, like him, follow him, and buy his music because you
don't
won't
stalk him.
disappoint. Yeah, that's that too. See you next time on the Nashville Access Facebook Show, brought to you by Solace North Gulch Apartments, where taste matters. Bye.